Greetings from Goblin Valley, Nissedal, Norway. I'm here so you don't have to be. First of all, a big thank you to all you patrons on Patreon. Without your help, I would never could afford to buy several of the same device and carry out experiments like you will see in this video. So thank you for your generosity. And of course this video will be on Patreon first. Both as a courtesy to you and to see if we can actually make this video public. Yeah. So, warning. People are personally attached to their vaping devices, and there will be some blowback and some hate and some stuff because I criticize, because I modify, and yeah, that's per usual. Second warning, do not do this at home. I do not recommend you do anything of what I'm about to show you. This is not a tutorial, this is not a how-to. I will keep the lids on. But if you understand electronics, you will perfectly well understand what I've done, and you will be able to repeat it, but you shouldn't. Okay. Yeah. So that's the warnings. Do not do this. Okay. And I've done it in the name of sort of science. It's about the 21700 battery and this 10 centimeter piece of wire. Let's just go to close-up and I'll show you a little bit, and then we'll talk statistics and efficiency after that. Yeah. This is the unmodified Pulse BF 80 watt box mod. And as you can see, nothing's been done in the battery chamber, and yeah, I had removed the back panel to measure some currents and volt drops and stuff. Behind this past blue sticker there is a screw. So if you are going to take this lid off, you peel off this blue sticker and to get access to this screw. But let's talk about the modification for a 21700 battery first. The thing you need to be aware of is these three screws. This limits how much you can remove of material. You cannot remove the places where these screws are entering the backbone of the mod. So you can shave a little bit of this piece, and you can shave a bit of the piece down here, but again you have screws here. So the thickness of the battery will have to be taken a bit out of the top lid. Let's look at how much material you need to remove. Here you can see how much material that has been removed. Some even broke away. This is done with a router, this placed in a vise and a handheld router on top for best possible control. You can see I've shaved off along this side. I have shaved off on this side. I have used a Dremel from the back side to shave off a little bit more of this window and stayed clear of the screws. The last thing you have to do is you have to sacrifice a magnet, because you have to use the Dremel tool if you have a Dremel, or sandpaper, but Dremel is preferable, because you need to sacrifice this magnet. You need to hollow out the panel, and now there is no problem. One magnet in the lid is more than enough, and there is absolutely no problem using a 21700 vape cell battery in this mod now. The device is negative on top and positive on the bottom, and when you remove this panel you will find that this is actually a big copper plate that is soldered in a point here. It is soldered to this wire, and this wire is routed like so over the battery to save space, and it goes down to the board around here. This wire is a 20 gauge wire approximately, and it is not copper, but it can be silver or steel or whatever. The point is, and I will stress this, do not call me an idiot who don't understand electronics, okay? The way the chip is designed, as long as the wire can have a trickle of current at 4.2 volts, the material or thickness of the wire should not matter. So according to some help I've gotten, and I've asked around, and I asked the electrical engineers, they all say the same. This wire, it can be any length or any thickness, and as long as it can carry 4.2 current with 4.2 volts, it shouldn't matter how long it is. And yeah, you get the drift, because what's happening is that this wire is always trickling current as long as the capacitor lacks current. The capacitor is a device that can store energy and release huge amounts of energy in an instant, depending on the electronics and the materials the capacitor is made of, and so on. So when you open this panel, you will find very, very short, very, very big wires on the top. So I guess the capacitor is situated up here. So the current running from the capacitor to the RDA, that's really short, fat, big wires, and very, very efficient. And as long as you have a wire that can carry and reload the capacitor, it really doesn't matter what it's made of and or how long it is. That's the theory, at least. But as you all know, I love to challenge theory. And you know, the question is, how big is the capacitor installed on top? What metals or materials is it made of? You never know about these things. So I opted for installing this 12 gauge copper wire and make it really, really short. I had to use my Dremel and cut out this window, and on the back lid, to make it fit, I had to make a groove with my Dremel. But these panels are really thick, So, oh, there is lightning and thunder outside. That's cool. So you have lots of material to take. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't weaken the panel at all. So again, I'll stress, this should not matter at all. Okay, I think Rocky Weeks call this a buck and boost system, and electrical engineers I talked about says the same thing. It really shouldn't matter how this wire goes. If it's a thin wire going like this, or if it's a big short fat one like this, it really shouldn't matter in theory on paper. But anyways, I did it. And just for challenging and see if anything happened, out of curiosity. So again, I stress, don't do this at home. If you know electronics, you know in an instant what I've done. And yeah, this soldering point, I did that with a torch, because you have a big plate, that's the positive contact for the battery, and this thick wire. To get the proper soldering, I used the torch flame. So yeah, just as a hint to those who knows what I'm talking about. So that is the two modifications I did. So, this experiment, what did I do? Well, firstly, if you remember when I modified the squeezer squonk mech mod, I talked about this 80 watt box, and I was very disappointed by its performance. It was 40% lower in efficiency compared to my mech mods. And we talked a lot about that, and we tried an experiment, and the experiment fell through because we didn't get enough data. And because everybody's vaping style, oh fuck it. Norwegians have only one we, and I pronounce it that way. Everybody has a different vaping style, and if you chain vape, all data goes out the window, because the coil is hot all the time, and it's very energy efficient to chain vape if your goal is to get through as many milliliters of e-juice as possible per charge. So yeah, I was really disappointed. I was thinking I had a malfunctioning device. I didn't. My vaping style is between 5 to 10 draws within a minute or two, and then I let it rest for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Unless I watch the World Cup in soccer, then I tend to chain vape a lot. So in order to make a statistical base for my style of vaping, okay, I needed to go through a ton of bottles of e-juice. For the last couple of months, I think, I'm not exaggerating here, but I think I've been going through at least 30 bottles, maybe 40. And comparing different RDAs, of course the same RDA and battery from device to device, of course, but experimenting with single coils and dual coils and different diameters, and yeah, all that stuff. And also experimenting, of course, with bypass mode and regulated mode. I chose 50 watts as the as the common ground when I used it regulated. It's good not to vape this at full 80 watts. You get twice the amount of puffs if you reduce by 30% in effect. So yeah, okay. Statistics. At 50 watts, there is hardly any difference. With the wire modification, the modified box is between 5 to 7% more effective. I know, call me an idiot, I know it shouldn't, but it does. The numbers are in, and I've done this so many times, and compared my vaping pattern and everything. Excuse me, there's a fly here. And I've done all of that, and the statistics are crystal. There at 50 watts there is a 5 to 7% difference between the unmodified and the modified. Now, the really controversial thing here is in bypass mode. I measured the volt drop on the battery, and I looked at the current in the display when I used variable voltage, and there you do not gain more output per puff. It's 80 watts, okay? That's the limit, and it's controlled by the electronics. But efficiency, with the modification in place, the statistics, I'll be conservative here and say that the difference is 20% in efficiency. The modified with the big fat short wire is 20% more efficient. You get 20% more e-juice with my vaping style with that modification. It should not work that way at all, but it does. So, why? I took a thermal camera, and I photographed the backside after 3-4 really big hits, and the wire got hot. Not hot, but 30 degrees Celsius or something like that. So there's obviously going current through the wire, and of course the bigger the wire, the more current it can lead. So of course it heats up a bit. But it also shows that the capacitor is charging quickly. And the reason for my results in bypass mode, okay, and with my style of vaping, that is puffs coming really short after each other for a short period of time, then rest. With that kind of vaping pattern, there is this difference, conservatively 20%, but at times much more. Now, the 21700 vape cell battery gives you another 20% in efficiency. Of course, the iJoy 2700 batteries are 3000 milliamps, and the vape cell is 4000, or measured at 3800 by battery much, or something like that. At least you get the even another 20%. So these two modifications, the soldering I did, and the when I used a router and Dremel tool to expand the battery chamber for the 21700 cell, is a gain of 40% in efficiency or more. I'm trying to be conservative here, so at least 40% in efficiency. That is, if you do these two modifications, you should really carry a spare bottle with you, because even with the dual coil setup, you go through at least one bottle. With a single coil setup, inner dimensions being the same, we have gone through that in another video. You really go through almost 2 bottles with a single coil inner diameter of 2.5 millimeters or so. So yeah, that was an experiment with the 80-watt pulse box mod. I truly do not understand why this modification works, as I've told you now many times. But there has to be something to do with when you're at the max output 80 watts, that the capacitor might be under-dimensioned for heavy use, and then the wire comes into play. As I said, in 50 watts there is hardly any difference, only about 5% for the wire change. Of course, with the bigger battery, you can add 20% on top of that. So suddenly this modified box is back on my menu, at least. It performs. It performs like the Pulse BF mech squonker, and yeah, it's an all right squonker, and now this is definitely an option, something to carry with you if you're accustomed to mechs. And oh yeah, sorry, you were not supposed to do this, okay? There was a warning very early in this video, and yeah, so I'm just ranting now. Don't do it. Buy yourself a decent mech mod and go for that. But at least there are some weaknesses, I think, in the electronics of the regulated devices, depending on settings and depending on your vaping style, of course. But if you push the electronics, at least this one falls through. So yeah, until next time, see ya.